ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track, and ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
Elected Republicans are also speaking out about Grift Force One, like Florida Senator and haunted Slim Jim Rick Scott. Senator Scott was asked about Trump taking the plane from Qatar and replied, "They support Hamas, so I don't know." Not exactly drawing a bright line in the sand. Reminds me of when Abraham Lincoln declared, "A house divided against itself, I don't know."
Welcome to Quiet Riot Sunday School, our slower, deeper, and ever so slightly more baffled end-of-week digest. If Thursday's main show is the firework display, think of this as the long walk home, muttering about the state of the world. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. I'm Naomi.
And I'm Alex, holding a little sparkler, feeling a little bit slightly bruised after some of the reaction to the main show, I must say.
What was the main thrust of the attack on you? Because on me, and I have to say, caveat, overwhelmingly wonderful, positive, lovely, thank you from listener responses, but quite a few for me were like, well, you can't slag off Keir Starmer when you helped put him there with tactical voting, and how are you going to fix things, Naomi? This is on you. Like I could have possibly predicted he was going to do that immigration speech a year ago.
I can't claim that the reaction to me was overwhelmingly positive. There were some nice comments. I would say the thrust of the reaction on X was, what do you mean he's thrown trans people under the bus? He was just protecting women, and it was the court that done it anyway. On Blue Sky, it was basically people from the left space going, we told you, you dismissed our assessment of his character, and now suck it up, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry.
You
knew when we recorded
it. Pardon, I told you.
Yeah.
I told you pretty much verbatim what the reaction would be.
Yeah.
But it still always baffles me how a political movement can be so bad at welcoming people into its space, which is like a pretty key thing to be able to do as a political movement.
Or even just to say there are 10% of things we're never going to agree on, but given that we agree on 90, let's be friends.
It's a feature of this side of politics that sort of being more right than someone in the same wing is more important. You know, everyone said their piece. I had a massive blocking session, which was very satisfying, and onwards and forwards.
Well, this week we're going to take you from desert palaces to sewer pipes.
Oh dear.
From the House of Saud to Thames House and back again.
Coming up, we dig into Donald Trump's luxury lap of honor around the Middle East, the private jet gift, the roaming McDonald's truck, and why the whole thing feels less like diplomacy and more like a billionaire's birthday party.
And then we'll head back to Britain, where Thames Water bosses have been told no bonus for you, but not before King Charles, not to be outdone, quietly climbed the rich list and parked his golden coach somewhere around Rishi Sunak's ambitions.
Plus, EU and UK negotiations have now firmly entered what is known as the tunnel. So we'll look at the last-minute jitters doing the rounds ahead of tomorrow's big summit.
And before we get into all of that, an important reminder. If you sign up to back us by Monday at 10 a.m, you will get an invite to our editorial meeting exclusively for our supporters. That is on Thursday evening at 6:30. You just have to head over to ko-fi.com/quietriotpod to sign up for as little as £5 a month. Quiet Riot. So Trump visits Saudi Arabia and somehow emerges not just with the usual photo ops and platitudes, but with a fully kitted out private jet, courtesy of the kingdom. A gift, a bribe, a bizarre loyalty scheme. Who's to say? What we do know is that the optics are something else. The aircraft is reportedly gold trimmed, just like his toilet, equipped with a McDonald's mini kitchen, and even has a custom nap room he's apparently calling the Peace Process Suite. You couldn't write this stuff, but they just keep doing it for us. Now, this comes as Trump ramps up his campaign for the 2026 midterms. With all the subtlety of a fast food tray slam, he's leaning hard into strongman optics, and Saudi Arabia is all too happy to bankroll the look. In exchange, possibly a loosening of export rules, a few defense contracts, and continuing to turn a blind eye to, well, everything else.
It's the transactional nature of it that's so stark, Naomi. This trip isn't about diplomacy. It's basically give him a purple carpet, feed him fries, and he gives you firearms.
Yep.
And if this is the style of international relations we're heading back into, then hold on to your cheeseburgers, folks.
Disappointed in the level of the delegation that the Russians sent to Turkey?
I don't know anything about it. I'm not disappointed in anything. Who are you from?
BBC News.
I'm not disappointed. Why would I be disappointed? We just took in $4 trillion, and he says, are you disappointed about a delegation? I know nothing about a delegation. I haven't even checked. Look, nothing's going to happen until Putin and I get together, okay? And obviously he wasn't going to go. He was going to go, but he thought I was going to go. He wasn't going if I wasn't there. And I don't believe anything's going to happen, whether you like it or not, until he and I get together. But we're going to have to get it solved because too many people are dying. Thank you. You're going to land right now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Alex, I've been so embroiled, of course, in the UK-EU stuff that I really only paid half attention to what Orange Man Baby's Middle Eastern jaunt was doing. So can you kind of give me a bit of a TLDR? Like, what happened? What was the prize? What might it mean for all of us?
Okay, so Trump claims to have just taken $4 trillion.
Right.
I mean, the most generous estimates I've seen detailed deals to just over half that amount. And importantly, almost none of it is to the state. None of it is, for the United States. It's to private companies. So when the United Arab Emirates say they will invest $1 trillion in AI, that's not going to Washington in any shape or form.
No,
that's going to a private company. As always with Trump, it pays to look at what's going on around the trip to get a feeling.
And very importantly, whether he or any of his top team have shares in the companies that are getting this money.
Yes, that too. But so he got on Air Force One and posted, I quote, "Has anyone noticed that since I said I hate Taylor Swift, she's no longer hot?"
That is such Lawrence Fox vibes.
And then he posted, "The radical left sleazebags, which has no cards remaining in its illegal bag of tricks, is in a very coordinated manner playing the ref. With regard to the United States Supreme Court, they lost the election in a landslide and with it have totally lost their confidence and reason. I hope the Supreme Court doesn't fall for their games they play. The people are with us in bigger numbers than ever before. They want to make America great again." And he followed that with, "I see that highly overrated Bruce Springsteen goes to a foreign country to speak badly about the President of the United States. Never liked him, never liked his music or his radical left politics. And importantly, he's not a talented guy, just a pushy, obnoxious jerk who fervently supported crooked Joe Biden, a mentally incompetent fool and our worst ever president." And then he went on to say that Springsteen is dumb as a rock and couldn't see what was going on, or could he, which is even worse. This dried out prune of a rocker, brackets, his skin is all atrophied, ought to keep his mouth shut in all capitals until he gets back into the country, Then we'll see how it goes for him.
Triggered much?
Those aren't the posts of a guy that's happy with how the trip went. And then we go into the whole jet fiasco, right?
Yeah.
I think that was a very nice gesture. Now, I could be a stupid person and say, oh, no, we don't want a free plane. We give free things out. We'll take one, too. And it helps us out because, again, we're talking about we have 40-year-old aircraft. The money we spend, the maintenance we spend on those planes to keep them tippy-top is astronomical. You wouldn't even believe it. So I think it's a great gesture from Qatar. I appreciate it very much. I would never be one to turn down that kind of an offer. I mean, I could be a stupid person and say, no, we don't want a free, very expensive airplane. But I thought it was a great gesture. And I think it was a gesture because of the fact that we have helped and continue to. We will continue to.
So just as a little bit of background, the first thing to say is that the State Department approved a $2 billion arms sale to Qatar just this March, which was a big, big shift in US policy. The Constitution provides in Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8, that no title of nobility shall be granted by the United States, and no person holding any office of profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of Congress, accept of any present, emolument, office, or title of any kind whatever from any king, prince, or foreign state. And the key word here is present, as in gift. And so every legal scholar I've read says a fully kitted out jet is firmly caught by the provision, since it is actually the Qatari state giving it to Trump as a present.
And these are basically anti-bribery laws, right?
Oh, yeah. Effectively, when the Constitution was framed, the worry was that some future president, the King of England, was going to come along and say, what say you, we put all this, revolution stuff behind us, and you go back to being a protectorate. And we'll make you
like to be Duke of,
we'll make you
Culture
Prince of California or whatever.
Yeah.
All of this is basically to safeguard against that. So the next thing I'm looking at is, will he ask Congress for consent? Remembering Congress in this situation means both the House of Representatives and the Senate. I've been looking at the reaction from some Republican senators, and there have been more than usual that have expressed discomfort with this Qatari plane. Rick Scott, who is a sort of very faithful Trumper, has said, I'm not flying a Qatari plane. They support Hamas. I don't know how you make it safe. I don't want the President of the United States flying on an unsafe plane. And various other, Rand Paul, Shelley Moore Capito, Susan Collins, I mean, they are perennial Trump critics. Josh Hawley, John Kennedy, they're all bringing up the security angle.
Can I just ask, and forgive me for not knowing the answer to this? So it's not an Airbus or a Boeing, it's actually a Qatari-made jet.
So what I've seen is that it's a 747-8.
So it's a Boeing.
Okay, so I'm reading here. The Boeing 747-8 is a stretched version of the 747. So it's as wide as a 747, but longer. So it's the equivalent of a stretched limo, but in the sky.
How very on brand. And I can only imagine that the very same people that will have been incandescent about Keir Starmer getting some clothes and glasses from Wahid Ali will be turning a complete blind eye to this on the UK side. No, that's just Trump, having a nice...
Or Hunter Biden, for that matter.
Well, indeed,
doing any kind of business with anyone. We've got the spectacle of Ann Coulter comparing it to France giving the United States a Statue of Liberty.
Lovely. Of course.
I mean, slight problem. The president was actually authorized and directed to accept the Statue of Liberty by a joint resolution of Congress in 1877. So not a great example, Anne. Closer to the grassroots, some MAGAs have been very hostile to this. So Laura Loomer popped up again, the second time in 10 days that she seems to be at odds with the Republican leadership after her reaction to the new Pope. And she posted, "I love President Trump. I would take a bullet for him, but I have to call a spade a spade. We cannot accept a 400 million gift from jihadists in suits. The Qataris fund the same Iranian proxies in Hamas and Hezbollah who have murdered US service members, the same proxies that have worked with Mexican cartels to get jihadists across our border. This is really going to be such a stain on the administration if it's true. And I say that as someone who would take a bullet for Trump. I'm so disappointed."
And of course, the Qataris will totally have known the Constitution of the USA in doing this, and that he may well not be able to accept it or will be forbidden from accepting it.
But if they know Trump at all, they would also know that he will accept it.
or that in order to get the defense contract and all of that all you have to do is flatter him with some gilded lily.
Quiet Riot.
Now, this is an advertisement for BetterHelp Therapy Online, who are sponsoring today's episode. A huge thank you to them. And I just want to tell you a little bit more about what they offer and their service. Maintaining our mental health is, of course, just as important as taking care of our physical health. And while I've seen societal values on therapy shift, there is still a lot of work to be done. For example, in a recent UK survey, 37% of participants said they feel uncomfortable discussing mental health concerns due to a fear of judgment. That stigma keeps many of us from seeking help. And it doesn't just affect us, but our families, workplaces, and communities. And yet it seems that the vast majority of us do recognise how important it is. In that very same survey, 85% value mental health just as much as physical, and 78% believe supporting it is vital to our well-being. At Quiet Riot, we know therapy isn't just for navigating trauma, it's a tool for growth. It teaches us how to cope with things. It helps set healthy boundaries in our relationships and empowers us to become the best version of ourselves. It's learning to thrive, not just survive. If you're ready to take a step towards better mental health, BetterHelp is here. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. We're all better with help. And our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/Quiet Riot. That's better, HELP.com/Quiet Riot. And our big thanks once again to BetterHelp for supporting the show.
Quiet Riot.
So Ben Shapiro, very influential in the MAGAverse on his podcast, said taking sacks of goodies from people who support Hamas is not a great look. If you want President Trump to succeed, this kind of skeezy stuff needs to stop. Mark Levin, another MAGAverse influencer, said there are news reports that Qatar is buying us a jet. Who knows? But Qatar must stop buying our colleges and universities and spreading their anti-American Jew-hating propaganda. It's not been plain sailing by any means. And I find this aspect of it interesting. And the security angle is actually quite important, because I've seen people saying that they're going to have to strip this plane down to nuts and bolts and put it back together in order to be sure that it's not, bugged in some way. So,
My goodness.
do you have thoughts about it? Do you view it with alarm or just amusement? To me, it seems like it's a completely new stage of corruption, where basically taking a bribe is not simply presented as, something that is okay to do, but as the moral thing to do.
When it comes to arms deals, my hackles are up anyway. Okay. Even, between normal times actors in this whole realm, gun running is generally, something that we have to inspect very, very closely. But as an accountant, I have to be fully trained up every single year. You have to refresh every year on Bribery Act training. I mean, it is absolutely critical. When I think about local government in the UK,
Yeah.
you can accept barely anything. You have to declare a freaking paperclip. Is it corruption? It smells like it. It looks like it. If he accepts it, I think
he's going to accept it.
major.
He is
leap
going to accept it.
back.
His statements are
Well,
basically, I would be stupid not to accept it.
it's crazy. It's just crazy. And I said this at the time last summer when all of the wardrobe gate stuff was going on around Starmer. It's never worth it. And it's the thing I always tell every politician. It's never, ever worth taking the free tickets to the gig or anything like that. And I know we're talking in orders of magnitude of millions different for the value of a jet, but he is a multimillionaire. He doesn't need this. He's got a plane. The expense of stripping this thing out, even if you put aside the ethics of it, it's not worth it.
It's very weird to be agreeing with Laura Loomer, I have to say. Very strange for me, vis-a-vis Starmer, and Laura Loomer vis-a-vis Trump, to be finding ourselves in the same emotional space of being very disappointed. Really strange, really strange.
I also want to know what's been happening now with Ukraine and Russia and where his head is at with all of that.
Before any of this, the US envoy said, what we're going to do is we're going to stop talking about talking. We're not going to keep negotiating about negotiating. But actually, this is exactly what happened. Everyone got together and talked about talking and negotiated about negotiating. No major breakthrough.
No major breakthrough whatsoever.
Symbolically, I guess, the first official talks are important, and they are a step, and they include a big prisoner swap. I think 1,000 going each way. That was agreed, but you could also look at that as a kind of trust exercise, in the same way that they started with a sort of 3-day ceasefire on energy infrastructure. You could look at it as, okay, let's try agreeing something, anything, to see if we can keep to it.
Yeah.
And that's what the prisoner swap feels like. It feels like there needed to be something measurable for the communique. Hilariously, Trump pretended that Putin didn't go because Trump said he wasn't going. So he was like, if he knows I'm not going, why would he go? But that's just not true, because he was trying to get Putin to go right up until the last minute. Right up until he was boarding Air Force One. He was saying, we don't know, I'm not going to tell you the destination of where we're going. And he was kind of wink, nudging that they might be heading to Turkey for the talks to try and motivate Putin to change his attitude. And then when it became clear that Putin wasn't going, he was like, well, why would he go? He knew I wasn't going. But that does hint that we still have at least one more act of the peace process panto to play, which is a direct personal meeting between Trump and Putin, because he did indicate that, the only way this thing is going to get solved is when Vovi and I get into a room together, basically, and sort it out. I'm not sure where that leaves Europe and Ukraine, if the idea is that him and Putin are going to get in a room and sort it all out.
We just had a meeting with President Zelensky and then a phone call with President Trump to discuss the developments in the negotiations today. And the Russian position is clearly unacceptable and not for the first time.
À l'instant, une discussion avec le président Trump pour d'abord tous considérer qu'il était inacceptable pour une deuxième fois que la Russie, Président Poutine,
Wir sind uns einig darüber, dass die russische Seite eine gute Gelegenheit gehabt hätte, in dieser Woche erste Gespräche über ein Friedensabkommen mit einem vorangegangenen Waffenstillstandsabkommen zu führen. Wir sind sehr enttäuscht, dass dies nicht stattgefunden hat.
That's the TLDR readout of the Ukraine stuff in Turkey. Also, we should give an honorable mention to the Comey Insta Shellgate.
What? This has passed me by. Tell me.
So, former director of the FBI, James Comey, insta'd a photo of some shells on a beach that were in the pattern of the numbers 8647. The idea being, as far as Comey was concerned, that it was 8647, so cancel the 47th president, basically. But someone pointed out that this may have meant that he is calling for Trump to be assassinated.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone latched onto that. So he's apparently now being investigated by every agency going. The current FBI director, Kash Patel, posted that the Bureau was aware of the recent social media post by former FBI Director James Comey. He's deleted it and said, I hadn't realized that the 86 could imply violence, that it could be cancel him as in erase him, take out the trash. But everyone had already jumped on it. I mean, the Secret Service is getting involved. The Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said disgraced former FBI Director James Comey just called for the assassination of Trump. She said that her department would investigate the matter. House Deputy Chief of Staff Dan Scavino posted on X saying that Comey was making a plea to bad actors / terrorists to assassinate the POTUS while traveling internationally. Presumably, he thought this was a signal to a Middle Eastern sleeping cell to take Trump out. Donald Trump Jr. responded, saying James Comey causally, I think he means casually, calling for my dad to be murdered. And so it went. So I think it's safe to say that Comey didn't see that one coming. I mean, it is insane. Actually insane while all this is going on.
I feel like I might be asleep and this is one of those weird dreams. My GCSE maths teacher's going to walk in wearing pajamas in a minute or something.
The whole thing is taking place in a McDonald's food truck. And James Comey walks in wearing a costume just made of seashells. So, anywho, I think that catches you up on what is going on across the water.
Thank you, Alex. I think I was better off not knowing, actually. So, yeah, next time I ask, maybe just check that I'm really sure I want to know.
Yeah, I'll just go, no. No.
Quiet Riot. If you've shopped online, chances are you've bought from a business powered by Shopify. You know that purple Shop Pay button you see at checkout? The one that makes buying so incredibly easy? That's Shopify. And there's a reason so many businesses sell with it, because Shopify makes it incredibly easy to start and run your business. Shopify is the commerce platform behind 10% of all e-commerce in the US. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/promo. Go to shopify.com/promo. Quiet Riot.
Now, back in Blighty, Thames Water bosses will potentially not be receiving their bonuses this year. A bold stand after multiple years of pollution scandals, spiraling debt, and the general vibe of a company that should be under special measures, not shareholder meetings. It emerged this week that Thames was planning to use part of a $3 billion emergency loan, which was meant to stabilize its finances and save it from collapse, to pay bonuses for senior executives. I'm not making any of this up, I promise. Not getting their bonuses is a start, but let's not pretend this is a revolution. Public outrage has hit boiling point, and the optics of giving bonuses while pumping sewage into rivers finally became too toxic, literally and politically. Meanwhile, over at Buckingham Palace, King Charles has quietly crept up the Sunday Times rich list, now nipping at Rishi Sunak's designer heels. Which raises the question, what is the monarch even for, if not to be slightly poorer than your prime minister? Now, the irony, of course, is that while Sunak battled the optics of wealth during a cost of living crisis, Charles appears to be embracing his inner billionaire. And even funnier, actually, Rishi Sunak dropping slightly down the list is all to do with stocks in various companies that he and his wife are invested in, dropping because of what's going on across the Atlantic, which there's a delicious irony to that. So in a week of jet diplomacy, shall we say, and golden thrones, we found ourselves asking the same question we always do. who exactly is running the show? And why are they all so much richer than us?
Well, they certainly are that, I can tell you.
Let's start with this. Where are my George Soros millions?
Well, they're all resting in the Best of Britain bank account and will be released to you, in due course at some point.
Thank you. Thames Water bosses are apparently not getting their bonuses.
Yeah.
But this is after a lot of public and political pressure. So I guess the first serious question is this proper accountability or is it just PR?
Yeah, so The Guardian got the scoop and they revealed that ministers are going to use new powers to block bosses from Thames Water taking bonuses worth, we are talking hundreds of thousands of pounds. We are talking like many times the percent of their take-home salary, like 130% of their salary in a bonus, as the company is fighting for survival. And it is the biggest water company in the country. And they admitted this week that the managers were in line for what they quote as substantial bonuses linked to this emergency $3 billion loan from the government, which of course is our money. This is what they always claim, whether it's banks that have, failed over mismanagement of subprime mortgages or now bosses at failing listed companies. We have to pay people bonuses because otherwise we'll lose them. Our senior managers, Sir Adrian Montague, told MPs at the Select Committee on Tuesday, are our most precious resource. And the bonuses can now be blocked under Steve Reed, the DEFRA Minister's Special Measures Bill, which gives the regulator Ofwat the power to ban financial rewards for executives.
So they are using this new piece of legislation, or have they threatened to use it? And
I think I think they will use it.
Right.
I don't know that they have yet. I think they're giving the company a chance to say, okay, well, no, we'll of our own volition not do it. Of course, Thames Water is a failing company. It is presiding over record sewage spills. It is heavily laden with debt. It is on the brink of financial collapse. And Thames Water Chairman, Sir Adrian Montague, told MPs that senior managers could receive bonuses of like 50% of their salary, citing them as the company's most precious resource. It's just incredible that you couldn't see, just the sheer optics.
How bad this looks, yeah.
Or B, just, I'm a manager. You don't reward failure. And these people if these people are your most precious resource, then go and find better people because they're clearly doing a terrible job. I mean, like on every metric, they are failing. Sod using powers to block a private company from doing a thing. Just re-nationalize critical infrastructure like this. It should never have been sold off.
I mean, you could take it over for a quid at this point.
Exactly. So,
if we're gonna indemnify all the fucking debt and keep pumping billions into it, then we might as well be in charge of it.
Exactly. No, it's outrageous. And I was at the beach on Monday with Wrigley. And I thought twice about throwing his ball into the sea for him to go swimming and fetch it back because
God knows what else is
and I'm
floating.
certainly not getting in British waters anytime soon.
Have you ever managed to quantify exactly what the break point is at which the threat of taking money away ceases to be the motivator and giving money begins to be the motivator? Because it seems that it's always sanctions at a particular level that will make people get to work and be productive. But above a certain income, then you have to give these huge carrots for people to get to work and be productive. Otherwise, they just leave the country.
I mean, I'm fairly sure there is a substantial amount of research around this. At the most fundamental level, humans are not actually motivated by much more money beyond the amount that they kind of need. A lack of money demotivates, but money in and of itself exponentially doesn't increase motivation. So I think that's kind of known. And all throughout the, boom years of the early noughties, we were just hearing about ridiculous sums being put at people to poach them from Goldman Sachs to Merrill Lynch or from PwC to Deloitte, and almost, Premiership League levels of transfer amounts between different companies to get the brightest and the best. Turns out none of them were. Loads of them were really corrupt. Loads of them were fucking useless at their job. Nobody was able to stand up to the bosses to say, hey guys, we're going to be on the brink of collapse here because we've over leveraged and bundled shit up in such a complicated way nobody can understand it, and now we're all desperately exposed, and as soon as one firm sneezes it's going to bring us all down with each other. And it's just that we never learn. We never ever learn, and it's just the same old thing coming back again.
Maybe the key skill here is getting loads of bonuses.
Yeah.
That's what they're good at. They're good at extracting value from any company they work for.
Asset stripping.
So King Charles, quietly climbing up the rich list. Should we be more concerned about this concentration of private wealth at the very top? Is it actually getting worse, or is it getting better?
No. Income inequality, wealth inequality are both getting worse in most countries. I mean, Ireland is getting terrible. We know that it's absolutely dire in America, where the vast majority of people live paycheck to paycheck, despite otherwise healthy economic metrics. And in the UK, it's galloping. And the vast majority of the increase in Charles's wealth is because of land, because his mum dies and the crown assets get passed from her estate to him. I wonder how much her other children got actually out of her death. I'm not sure, but I think his wealth increased 2,000% in the last year as he now owns Sandringham and Balmoral and all of that. And the monarchy claims always to be above politics. Charles, probably one of the more political members of the royal family we've had in modern times, but turns out definitely not above profit. In a cost of living crisis era, when food banks are now completely normalised and are as common a sight on a town's high street as a butcher's and a baker's and a betting shop either were, used to be or still are, then seeing the sovereign racking up royal revenues just sends such a clear message that we're not all in this together. And if Charles wants to be a modern monarch, he's got to start by divesting some of this unearned wealth, or at least, make the duchies pay corporation tax like the rest of us. It's not a good look. And this is the horrible direction of our country over many decades now. And I don't understand why there isn't more of an uproar about it. And I think the French would be doing far more if they were suffering quite as an acute concentration of billionaire wealth as we are in the UK. We are effectively serfs a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's really weird how little
the Brits
reaction there is. How little reaction there is to stuff like that. I always find it really peculiar. I don't understand it. And you were right to point out really the double standard, because we can remember how much adverse PR Sunak faced.
Indeed.
Because of his wealth, right? How often it was said that he just didn't understand the cost of living crisis, that he couldn't
use a tip and pin machine.
He wasn't plugged into ordinary people's worries and lives, and none of that. We seem to get none of that when it comes to the royal family. So I just think the emotional relationship that British people have, that most British people have.
God bless you, my lord. Doffing the cap bullshit. And it's entrenching privilege and the class system that is eroding the fabric of our society.
Yeah, but when you're taken to your first parade when you're a toddler, 2-3 years old, and the flag is put in your hand and you're made to feel proud and you're made to feel like you belong, then your connection to these people is not purely rational, is it? It's emotional.
No.
And so it's pointless trying to explain with reason why this is such a weird thing.
Yeah.
But there it is.
There it is. And we've got to start taxing wealth in this country, and we've got to start with land. And no government has been brave enough and bold enough to do it. Vince Cable came relatively close when he was Business and Trade Minister during coalition years, and I know that he certainly wanted to do a revaluation of, like council tax bans and things like that. But, did not happen because they were in coalition with the Conservatives, who very much benefit from entrenched privilege and wealth and land value. But if we want to solve so many of the ills in our country, from land banking of the developers, to the lack of completion of infrastructure projects, to the empty homes crisis, to the fact that, elderly people are living in homes that are too big for them because the social care system does not work, and going into a residential home or downsizing just, isn't going to work for you, or there's certainly no incentive to do it. If we're going to continue to be having to charge business rates on small local enterprises so much that their margins are completely eroded and they can't have a physical presence on our high street anymore and have to go online, like, all of these things are interconnected, and all of it leads back to the fact that land in this country is owned by a very, very small number of estates. You can famously walk from Cambridge to London without leaving land owned by Cambridge University. The Church of England owns so much property around the country, and
the Crown.
Exactly. And then the other dukes. We will fix so many of our problems if we can move to a more progressive taxation system. And it is deeply disappointing that our current government is not even considering significant wealth taxes on other things around capital.
Yeah, well, in their defense, they went to fix one tiny kink in the inheritance tax code, and the entire world sort of jumped on there.
Well, maybe if they'd started with the Duke of Westminster, some of the Welsh hill farmers wouldn't have felt quite so sore about it.
Quiet Riot. Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Quiet Riot.
Last but not least, the UK-EU summit is tomorrow, if you're listening on Sunday, and there have been a few slightly concerning stories in the press detailing last-minute snags. France is trying to reopen fish quotas, apparently, according to the Financial Times on Thursday. The EU is unhappy about the university fees that EU students will be paying as part of a youth mobility scheme. That's according to the Independent on Friday. And according to one anonymous EU diplomat, there's a view that after Brexit, most of the asks in this negotiation are British asks. Mm-hmm. So they are pressing for improvements to the youth mobility scheme in exchange for better access for touring artists, according to the FT on Friday.
And Alex, may I point out, according to me on the Quiet Riot show recorded on Wednesday, almost all of that was covered by me.
Yes, although your view at the time, and this is what I want to probe now, was that most of it is close to agreement and you weren't expecting something major to blow up the deal. Is this overzealous reporting, basically, of quite thin rumors? Because we do occasionally see that. When they go into the tunnel, which means the period during which they don't give briefings to journalists because they're negotiating the technical nitty-gritty of the language and everything like that, and it's seen as a very bad thing to do that in the public eye. So when they do that, high-ranking officials are very tight-lipped. Then newspapers tend to zero in on junior officials, and they get asked, if anything proves to be an issue, what do you think it could be? And so when an official says, well, it could be X, then it's reported as big issue with X. Is it that? Is it genuinely last-minute jitters on behalf of one or both of the parties? Or is it just active stage managing and expectation managing that will add a bit of peril and drama to the proceedings so that when the deal is eventually announced tomorrow, everyone can go, phew, what a success.
It is not the latter. As I understand it, it is not stage managed in any way at all. Negotiations have not been completed according to the original timeline.
I see.
They did think that they would have wrapped it up, and I believe that the government was hoping to do a lot of pre-announcement in Sunday papers, which I don't think is now happening. I think they've all been pulled because there is nothing to trail.
Oh, shit. So,
because they are going right down to the wire on smoothing out these last-minute tussles, which you often get right at the end of a negotiation before the ink is put on the paper. Okay, but could we also get this? Could we also get that? Could we also get the other? Now, I did mention that France was trying to reopen fish quotas. Remember, they tried to link those to the Defence Pact. That was not successful. So they were then trying to link them to the SPS agreement.
Yeah, the sort of review, the regular review of those.
That's right. And this is not going to work for France.
You see, I was paying attention.
You were. It was 10 out of 10, gold star. Because what the fish issue is about is quotas. It's about the amount you're allowed to catch. And the SPS deal is about alignment on regulatory standards. And you simply cannot review those every 4 years because you can't change how a whole enormous farming industry produces product livestock, every 3 to 4 years. You've bred the cow 3 years before it's then slaughtered for meat, right? So you just simply can't do that. So that won't work, but it is the French trying to use some leverage to get what they want out of it. The youth mobility thing has always been a late entrant because of the UK, standing firm on it for a very long time, which they shouldn't have done. I think Erasmus might now be in. I think Erasmus Plus could well be in, which would be brilliant, but not at the expense of youth mobility. They are very, very separate and do very, very different things.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, there are a lot of last minute things happening that I think were not anticipated as being done so close to the wire.
Can I ask you, whom do you think is the main pusher, the main gazumper of last minute trying to get slightly more crammed in? Is it coming more from the UK side or is it coming more from the European side?
I think the European side.
Right.
The thing that the UK have been pushing is everything that I mentioned as being that package 3, the stuff that they won't announce that they're going to negotiate immediately, but that they hope to negotiate at some undetermined point in the future. And it really is, at this moment, I believe mostly the French pushing for extra things.
Mm-hmm.
It was nice to see in Tirana on Friday, Donald Tusk, Friedrich Merz, Starmer, but also Macron, all lined up together, chatty. So hopefully they've been taking time outside of that European political community dialogue to have some bilats to try and sort some of this stuff out quickly.
And instruct their people to kind of get it together. Nigel Farage has been piping up. You'll be delighted to hear. He's saying he will scrap anything Starmer agrees, even though he doesn't know what it is, which doesn't seem like the most responsible position to be taking. But who am I to judge? So he's saying that he will scrap any deal Starmer comes up with. Actually, he said he would love to renegotiate. This is a quote. He would love to renegotiate the entire relationship with the EU because the original, again, I quote, the original agreement was shocking and it's been an uphill battle ever since. Those of you older than 6 years might remember that Nigel Farage stood down hundreds of candidates in 2019 in order to give the Johnson government a large majority so that they could strike this shocking deal, as he now describes it. So is this something that we should take seriously? Is it something that the EU will be taking seriously? More importantly, will they be looking at it and thinking, whatever we agree now is going to be scrapped in 3 years' time?
Alex, I'm so sorry to tell you that the answer to your questions is yes. Yeah. Polls out before we recorded the show, not looking good for Labour at all, continuing to look very good for Reform. Very much worth pointing out that what is not going well for Labour is it losing far more votes over to SNP, Liberal Democrats, Greens than to Reform. Reform is taking almost all of its new vote from the Conservatives. So yes, you do have to take the threat of him being Prime Minister very seriously. But he is very good at politics, Alex. And he's right that you will not find somebody in the UK, even David Frost, who will tell you that the deal that we have at the moment is a good deal. Whether you are the most ardent Remainer or the most ardent Leaver, you will agree that what Boris Johnson negotiated was absolutely shit for the UK.
Yeah, but he enabled it. That's the point.
By saying,
but Farage enabled it. That's the point.
Of course he did. But no one's holding him to account on anything. And he's on the march. He clearly is. And there was a Hollywood by-election on Thursday night, and Labour did disastrously badly, and the SNP and Reform did very, very well. And the signs are all there, and the EU are concerned about that. And anyone who's not a massive Anglophile within the European Commission and member states, and there are many of them, will be using Farage's rise to justify their argument for not giving the UK very much at all.
Yeah.
So let's hope that cooler heads prevail, and that people like Friedrich Merz and Donald Tusk, who are Anglophiles and do want to see the UK and the EU having a much closer relationship again, prevail. But we are in difficult and dangerous times for as long as the Labour government are being outfoxed by Reform on political comms.
Well, I mean, they're being outfoxed by their own fucking strategy department at the moment.
Well, indeed.
I mean, who could have guessed that bashing immigrants would not work like a charm for Starmer?
Who could have guessed only taking GB News with you on your trip to Albania could turn out to garner no positive headlines from the right-wing media for a Labour government? Some bright spark in the comms unit at number 10.
Quiet Riot.
Well, that's all from Quiet Riot Sunday School this week. We'll be back on Thursday, unless, of course, we are gifted a golden jet and disappear into the golden sunset.
We'll leave the sort code and account number in the show notes, just in case. You never know who's listening. Everybody else, as ever, do share, rate, subscribe. And remember, whether it's Thames Water or Air Fast One, always check who's picking up the tab.
Now, remember to be signed up as a monthly supporter by 10 a.m. tomorrow, Monday, if you want to attend the editorial meeting on Thursday evening at ko-fi.com/quietriotpod. It's going to be an important one because we'll be discussing a lot of core issues to do with the podcast. Go in peace and podcast no more. Until next time.
Thank you for listening. We love you lots. Bye.
Bye.
Quiet Riot is an audio production by Cooler Heads with Naomi Smith and Alex Andreou. Produced by Kenny Campbell. Music by Mariana Sangeeta. Artwork by Simona Canelu. And edited by me, Alex Reese. Quiet Riot is a co-production with Sandstone Global.
Welcome to Quiet Riot. Wait, fuck that up. Let's spell that again.
At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years and #2 among public universities for employability. ASU isn't just ahead of the curve. It's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.